Welcome to the Intentional Man Podcast, a podcast that inspires and equips men to lead lives of intentionality and grow to their full potential. I'm your host, Jonathan McGinley, a life coach that helps men just like you create the life that you want and live a story of significance through my coaching and tools on intentionality. Thanks for joining and welcome to the show. All right. Welcome to the show. You are in for a special episode today. I got my good friend and brother, Marcus Robinson, with us. Marcus, how you doing?
I'm doing so good, man. Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm excited to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for taking your time to be with us today. And the reason I asked Marcus to be on here, I've actually seen firsthand a pretty amazing transformation over this last about year or so. And just seeing the way that he has just made some shifts in just his mindset and his habits towards health and fitness, particularly, but also how that's kind of infiltrated all the other areas of his life. And I've just been inspired watching you, man. Really been inspired of just seeing the journey you're taking, and also just couldn't say, like, I'm just so proud of you for all the battle that you've put in, and just the man that you're becoming. You are an intentional man, and that's why you're on the show. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I'm gonna sit you down on the compliment couch. I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for like the time that we had spent together. And you've had a huge impact on, like, especially over the last year, and but also just, the last I guess I've known you in one capacity or another for, I think, a decade now.
Wow, is that
But
right?
yeah, but for sure a lot more
Yeah,
here in the last couple years,
for
specifically in
sure.
like the last two. So yeah, happy
Yeah.
to be here and super grateful for you. So yeah.
Thanks, man. Yep. No, it's gonna be great. So thanks for joining us. So Marcus, just to get started, I kind of want to just get a little insight into some of your journey. So just for a little perspective, a little backstory, Marcus in the last year has really just dialed in his fitness habits, his eating habits, has changed his mindset, and has dropped a lot of weight and also just gained a lot of muscle, gained a lot of strength. He's a beast now. Everyone's taking notice. Uh, and so anyway, that's kind of a big transformation that I've seen. So, but I know that this has been an area that you've worked on for a long time, and so I'd love to just kind of hear, take us back to your journey with health and with fitness, kind of like the last 5 to 10 years. What did this area look like for you?
Yeah, so I was kind of always like a bigger kid growing up, and so like playing sports, like especially like playing football, nobody cared. That's like, you need to be big, and so
Right.
there wasn't a reason to like, "Oh, why would I try and lose weight?" Everybody's encouraging me like, "Oh yeah, we need you to be big," and at that time, like, there wasn't like this like, "Oh, you can be big and be healthy." And so I always wrestled and like felt super self-conscious about like weight and just like my own like body image.
Yeah.
So then being an adult, you're not playing sports anymore, but still eating like I'm training twice a day and playing football. And so I,
Mhm,
did
mhm.
that through my whole adulthood. Like, dude, I used to like, after a long Sunday, I would come home and I had it dialed in to where like I would order Domino's, and I would, by the time I got to my apartment, the Domino's right behind where I lived, I would order and eat an entire like large thin crust, extra cheese, double sausage, double pepperoni, pineapple, jalapeno pizza, and then I'd take a nap.
I
Like,
figured you had an exact order.
yeah, it was very exact, but
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
funny like to hear, but like that
yeah.
was my like treat, because I,
Mhm.
worked really hard that weekend. And so that kind of like that thought around eating, um just total lack of discipline, and not really caring like, what is this actually doing to me other than making me feel super full for a few hours, and it feels good for about 15 minutes. But
Right.
those were my habits. Like, I didn't have the ability to say like no to anything. um so really, like, I was really good at making excuses. I was like the poster child for, diet starts on Monday. Um,
Mhm.
and just there was no discipline. So you asked, what's the last 5 to 10 years look like? It was
Yeah.
just doing whatever I wanted whenever I wanted to do it, and not doing anything I didn't want to do because I was like, well, that feels hard, and I had gotten so comfortable in discomfort. Um, I think
Interesting. Yeah.
even when you know something is bad for you, when you're used to it, there is still a comfort there, even if it's a negative comfortability. And so that's where I lived, really prior to the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I think that is so profound that you're aware of that. And I think what you just said is so good because I think it's interesting when we don't do the things that we know we should do, and why we continue to do them. But being comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, it's because it's the habits. And I think you mentioned, going back through your high school years, it's just kind of what you did,
Yeah.
and it was honestly encouraged, and so it just became this routine, and it got to a point where it was comfortable for you to eat an entire pizza, and you knew you didn't want to do that, but it just became familiar,
Yeah.
and so how where did that lead you in terms of like your emotions? And I know you kind of mentioned your self esteem and things like that. Like when you were in that season of what you should be doing, but you just can't seem to do it. Where kind of was your headspace?
Yeah, I think it gets really discouraging after a while when, like, I had come to a point for myself where I'm like, I think I'm just one of these people, and I think I'll probably get bigger
Mm,
and bigger and bigger, and it happens so incrementally that you don't notice it. Um, but I used to watch shows like My 600 Pound Life and be like, I don't get how those people get there. It's like, well, one
yeah.
Sunday afternoon pizza at a time is how you get there. So yeah, I had a really low self esteem, and like I knew like, oh, I am like I'm struggling how to say this because I think in our culture right now, like it's gonna sound like, oh, you're body shaming, but it's myself, so I can say what I wanted. Um, I
Yeah.
looked gross. I looked unhealthy. I was bloated. Like I looked unhealthy, and I felt unhealthy, even just like emotionally as well. Of like I'm not happy
Yeah.
with how I look, and it's so hard to like depart yourself of like, well, this is how I look, and now this is how I feel, because like now I have a negative image of myself, which is building these negative feelings towards myself as well. So I
Hmm.
went through a pretty like intense season of I guess what I would consider depression. Um,
Yeah.
of just wasn't motivated by anything, didn't experience these. I always thought growing up that depression was like, I'm not depressed because I'm not having like suicidal thoughts. But I think real
Hmm.
depression is like, yeah, I don't really experience highs or lows. Like I am just numb all the time. And
Yeah.
I lived that way for probably 5 years. And it just got really tiring until sort of a wake up call happened. But then even that like didn't really last.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that. So, and it sounds like was do you think this, like your eating habits and some of your weight and just your body image, was kind of driving a lot of your emotions and decisions and confidence, I guess,
Oh,
in
absolutely.
all areas of life?
I think other than the tasks or the skills that I knew I was good at, I had confidence in my
Yeah.
abilities, but not any sense of confidence in myself, like whatsoever.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's so interesting how when one area can be off like this, it can affect all the others. And I think what's cool now is you're getting on the flip side where you're seeing the opposite of when you get this
Yeah.
dialed in, how it affects all the others, which is cool. And we'll talk about some of that. But and one other thing you said, I think was so profound because you said one pizza a day for a lot of years can all of a sudden you can find yourself in a situation you didn't want to be in. And I think we do kind of understand that on the other end, where, hey, I have to consistently go to the gym, I have to consistently eat healthy, whatever it is to get to the place I want to go. Obviously, we want it to go faster than it goes, but
Yeah.
I do think we don't oftentimes realize the compounding effect that happens negatively as well. It's because we don't realize that we're compounding those things so much over time. So
Yeah.
that's what it sounds like for you. Like you were compounding but weren't necessarily aware of it, and then all of a sudden you found yourself in a place where you were losing confidence and felt stuck.
Yeah, and it's
So I
like by
kind
the
of,
time you feel
yeah,
aware of it, it's like, well, now what do I even do? Like, no,
yeah,
not that I think you should do it, but like you can eat a whole pizza and you're not going to gain 50
hmm,
pounds. You can also go to the
right.
gym once and you're not going to lose 50 pounds.
Yeah, no, which is yeah, such a good realization. And I think in our, instant gratification culture, especially on the flip side when we're trying to lose the weight, that's what we hope. And after 2 weeks, we're like discouraged that we didn't lose the weight or we didn't, hit the goals that we had. But if you think about it, you had, 15, 20 years of compounding negatively that you then
Yeah.
had to undo. It is going to take some time.
Yeah, totally.
For sure. Yeah. One thing you mentioned earlier, you said that you felt like this was just your reality, that this was who you were. So kind of I just want to dig on that a little bit. So did you feel like this was just who you were, that you were always just going to be unable to kind of control your eating habits and your fitness?
Yeah, and I just thought I guess I'm just not one of those people that has a fast metabolism. And that's sort of what I
Mhm.
blamed it
Mhm.
on. Not like, "Hey, look at all the crap that you're eating, like, maybe don't do that." It was just, I guess I was trying to blame some kind of, like, chemical imbalance that some people really do have that I was like, "I don't think I
Yeah.
actually have this." This just feels like a really good, like, self-diagnosed medical excuse for why I am this way. And I had tried to lose weight a number of times over the years, and I think I didn't have realistic expectations. I didn't have somebody helping me do it, and I didn't
Mhm.
know what I was doing. I had hyper unrealistic goals. And so when you fail wildly, it's so discouraging. It's like, well, I don't want to be hungry and not losing weight and still unhappy. I may
Yeah.
as well eat what I want, and I guess this is just me.
Yeah, which I think is the temptation to do so many times. I've felt that in a lot of different areas of my life, even, early on building a business. If, you fail and you're like, maybe I'm not cut out for this. um, or maybe this just isn't who I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm not that guy. And I think it's very easy to kind of fall into that victim mentality. I think it's honestly kind of our natural, because if you if we say we're the victim, if this is just who I am, then the responsibility is off of us to actually
Yeah.
do something about it, right?
Hmm.
um, so if I just say, "Oh, this is just how it is. This is just who I am," I'm just accepting that this is the only reality that I'm ever going to live with, and that I don't actually have the ability to change it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's such a thing to be aware of, is what are those areas in your life? With Marcus, with you, it was health and it was kind of this fitness, but for all of us, we probably have some of those things in our life where we're just taking on an identity that maybe isn't actually the truth.
Oh, totally.
And it's time that we start pushing those boundaries and taking responsibility, because when you started doing that, things started to change,
Yeah.
which is the cool part about it. Before we kind of get into that piece, I know you mentioned you tried some different things. I remember having seeing some success and then maybe some slip ups, and kind of we're doing this back and forth kind of thing. Can you take us through that season? Because I think we can all relate to that. Of you get really dialed in, you lock in for a month, two, three, it goes really well, and then you kind of fall back to old patterns. What did that look like
Yeah.
for you in terms
It
of
feels
yeah?
really generous for you to say I maybe saw some slip ups. It was a 50-pound weight gain. Um, but yeah, so
Uh,
gosh, in 2018, maybe 2017, I think 2017. So I like had tried the keto diet, and
mhm,
doing that, I lost 70 pounds in 5 months. Now, granted, I mean, for reference, for anyone listening, I am all of 5'10". So to say, oh, you lost 70 pounds in 5 months, I want to do that diet. Well, you have to start at 270 pounds. Um, and it's not hard to lose that much weight when you have so much to lose. So, like
yeah,
you today, like if you lost 70 pounds, you would disappear. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, so I lost 70 pounds in 5 months, and it was like every day I stepped on the scales, losing weight, losing weight, losing weight. And then
Mhm.
I kind of got to like the weight that I was like, I feel comfortable being this weight. But I still was like, I was not in shape. I wasn't any more healthy. I was just a smaller, out of shape person that still had bad eating habits because I had like crash dieted pretty intensely. Like I was doing
Mm.
8 to 1100 calories a day for 5 months. Like that's how you lose 70 pounds. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it worked for the time being. And as soon as I stopped, I was like, if I have to eat another egg again, if I have to eat another chicken breast again, I'm going to lose it. And it wasn't sustainable. Like it worked well because it worked quickly. But
Right.
it was not a long term success. And so then,
Hmm.
fast forward a few years and I'm back to like 220, 230. Um, and I was like, we're back to this again. And I think the other, like, I'd made the excuse in the back of my mind of like, well, I've done this before, so I know what it takes. I can lose all that weight again. And so I gave myself
Ah,
permission to just
interesting.
kind of gain it all back again. Because it was like, well, I've
Yeah.
proven I can do this, so that means I don't have to.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually. Take me back to when you lost to 70, you're at 200 pounds. Um, talking about this identity piece of like, this is always going to be who I am. Did that flip at all, or were you still kind of feeling like I am that overweight guy? This is just who I am. Like after that point, how did you feel in
Yeah.
that way?
Some of my self-assessment of myself, I was just looking at like numbers on a scale. And so I was proud of myself, like, hey, that it does take a lot
For
of
sure.
discipline to say, I'm gonna go from eating everything in sight 24/7 to okay, I'm gonna do like super intense calorie restriction. But it was like the pulling of this rubber band of like, and then it snapped back super hard. And I was like, okay, we're done with that part. So
Yeah.
as far as a confidence piece went, like I was happy with myself, because I had done, the hard work of losing all that weight, but I wasn't any more, like, confident in myself because I
Mm,
still looked recklessly out of shape. I didn't have
yeah.
anything to show for it, and losing that much weight that quickly, um, any muscle that I may have had, like, that was all gone as well because I just, like, kinda wasn't eating, um, and so I didn't really I was just a smaller, out of shape person
Yeah.
that still had like, if you don't have any muscle to be 5'10", 200 pounds, that's still a high percentage of body fat. So
Yeah.
I didn't look really any healthier unless you had seen me, at 270. If you had just met me that day, you'd be like, this guy could stand to go to the gym and lose some weight because I didn't
Yeah.
look any more healthy.
Yeah. And then you kind of gained 20, 30 pounds back then. How did you feel at that point? Like kind of you had gone back. Did you feel any better then than when you were 270, or was it kind of that like, oh my gosh,
Uh,
I'm kind of in the same situation?
Yeah, I think physically, I mean, still to have gained, 30 pounds back, you still feel better than you did with an additional 40 pounds.
Uh-huh.
But,
Yeah.
joints hurt, ligaments are carrying, more, more weight than they're supposed to. Um,
Hmm.
but I think in the back of my mind, I knew like, okay, I don't want to have to do this like 2-year cycle of we go super hard for 5 or 6 months and then we just kind of relapse. And then 18 months later, we have to do another super intense 6 month diet. It was just,
Hmm.
it's tiring to do. And I was like, I need to do something else because, yes, it works immediately and you do see results, but it doesn't work long term. And I don't want to have to keep doing these like super intense sprints.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Which is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And I think even just that mindset of how it felt like such a burden. That's what it kind of sounds like,
Yeah.
right? You were like, this just doesn't feel fun. This is just like you did it. You had the discipline. But definitely the mindset was more of this sucks. This is so much sacrifice. My life is terrible to get down to here. So like, picturing the future, you probably were like, "I don't wanna keep doing this over and over and over again."
Oh, the idea of
Um
doing a 5-month-long crash diet, like, is abhorrent to me now. Like, I
Yeah,
I I
yeah.
could never. And, like, having now found a different, like, path towards health, I'm like, I wish somebody I wish when you and I had sat down in, January or whatever,
Mhm.
like, I wish we'd had that conversation in 2016, 2017.
For sure. Well, and I think, and that's one of the biggest things that I saw shift in you was, and which has been so cool to see, is just the excitement you have now towards working out and
Yeah.
how that's become just a part of who you are, and this is something that you enjoy now. And it's so for you, if you're listening and this is something that you hate and it just feels like it's not sustainable, and I don't know if I want to spend 50 years of my life dieting and eating just chicken and rice and all these things. That can be a lot of times what we think you have to do. But it was cool when you made some shifts that now you're in a place where it's a lot more sustainable and you're enjoying it, and
Yeah.
it's actually become a passion of yours, which is super cool. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of earlier this year. Um, what was kind of the big moment, the big shift for you, to kind of set you off this new path?
Yeah. I wanna have this, like, really inspirational, altruistic answer to this.
It's usually not how it is, though.
No, we had decided we were going on vacation to Mexico, and I was like,
Hmm.
shirtless on a beach is like the last place that I want to be right now. So that was my real, like, time sensitive surface level motivation when you and
Yeah,
I first sat down and we talked more and
yeah,
more. And you're like, okay, what's actually like, because that won't sustain you. Same thing with trying to do a,
hmm,
a crash diet, whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with the keto diet. Obviously, it works. But you're like, okay, if you don't want to have to keep coming back and doing this, like, what is going to be your long-standing motivation? So we're not doing this,
yes,
once for a few months, and then we come back in 2 years. Like, cool. Hey, every 2 years I need to lose 50 pounds. Um, and I think it was just the longevity of my health and thinking about, like, okay, so my if you're listening, my wife and I are, like, pretty recently married, just a little over 2 years, and so thinking about, like, okay, what would it look like if we were gonna, start a family and have kids? Like, I want to be able to, like, play with them and not be like, I
hmm,
can't because everything hurts all the time because I weigh 400 pounds. So it was
yeah,
really like a sustainable lifestyle, so that instead of, well, I want to eat cheesecake right now, it's like I would rather be alive when I'm 60 than to be
yeah.
super indulgent right now and just trying to, like, get it all out.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. It was powerful when you had, the external, the extrinsic motivation of the cruise or the vacation to the beach is a motivator, and I don't think those things are wrong. But what you said is so cool. Of those things can kind of get you going, but once you hit that, if that's all it's attached to, then you don't really have anything to kind of continue after that.
Hmm.
And so you found a deeper why that can last your entire life. And I remember that conversation when it was clicking for you of, and I could just see it. You want to be a good dad, like I know you do,
Yeah.
and you want to be a good husband, and like that's the desire of your heart. And so when you attached it to those things of, I just want to be able to play with my kids. I want to be able to, run around and do what they want to do and spend time with them and have energy to work and come home and still have energy for my kids and to be the best version of myself I can be for my wife. When you started like attaching this new goal to that, it was like it's game time.
Yeah. Oh,
It was like,
100%.
okay, this
100%.
is this is something that can keep you going for a long time. So contrast that why with what you had back when you were trying keto and all those things. What were the differences and like the drivers and the why that you had?
I think a big thing, again, from the surface level goal, like, all right, well, we're going on vacation in June, which then I remember having, like, an existential crisis moment and came to you and, like,
Yeah.
airline tickets are more expensive, and she moved it up to May. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think having a time sensitive, like a time bound goal, um, was really like, okay, I need to do this by this date. How am I gonna get it done? um,
Yes.
that that changed a lot. Instead of, I think it's really easy to make these big lofty goals that say, hey, one day I want to do this, and one day I want to do this, and one day I want to look like this. And the
Mhm.
funny thing about the human brain is like, and I'm sure you have people in your life like this as well, but I know some people that are always talking about all the stuff they want to do and never do it. And I'm like, well, you've been talking about starting this thing for like 3 or 4 years and you've never done it.
Mhm.
The actual like endorphin release that your brain gets from talking about something is the same as if you had actually done it. So your like central nervous system doesn't know the difference between actual success versus the idea of it and just like
Mm.
ideating on it.
Mhm.
And so I think that was a big difference for me. Is I said, no, I have a goal and it is bound by this timeline. Um, and then I think having somebody to like walk with me through it was was an absolute game changer. I remember
Yeah.
sitting at one of our follow up meetings and just going through the math of like, okay, here's your body weight. Here is the weight you want to get down to. If you want to do that, yeah, you can. And here's exactly what you need to do in order to do that. And I think, like, especially if you're listening to this and like, oh, I want to lose, 50 pounds or I want to lose 10 pounds, the math for me removed the mystery. And that was like
Mhm.
some of that stuff I didn't know existed. Like I knew there was, calories in, calories
Yeah.
out, but I didn't know, okay, there's
Yeah.
3,500 calories in a pound. And depending on what you eat, there's 9 calories in a gram of fat versus 4 calories in a gram of protein.
Right.
And
Right.
the other thing I think that was helpful is knowing like it did not feel nearly as restrictive as I thought it was going to be. So I was like, well, I'm
Right.
just going to
Yeah.
be hungry every day from, January to June or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and after we were talking, you're like, no, dude, you can kind of eat whatever you want. Have this much protein, stop eating after this time, and try to stay under this many calories. But outside of that, yeah, you can kind of do whatever you want. I was like, oh, I thought I was just going to have to eat chicken, broccoli, and rice
Yeah.
until the world
Yeah.
ends. And
Right.
it was like,
Right.
okay, this isn't going to be this like miserable, just like chore. And that's what keto
Mhm.
felt like. It was like going to work every
Yeah.
meal because I'm like, I don't want to eat eggs and cheese 3 meals a day. I
Mhm.
can't do it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, having a time sensitive goal and then having a coach, having somebody to be like, hey, here's all the things you can be doing. Um, and then like one thing I'm super grateful for you is like even in my training program now, like I came to you after the first month was like, dude, so the thing that we set up is like killing my body. So I had had a dislocated shoulder a number of years ago. I was like, some of these movements, like it just hurts so bad. And I've gone from like, cool, my attempt to lose weight has now like, I've got a membership at a chiropractor because I have to go like twice a week because my joints hurt so bad. And you were like, yeah, dude, don't do things that are hurting you. It's like, oh, well, I thought we set up this program so that's what it has to be. But you're like, no, change
Yeah.
change it to do something that's not making your life worse. Um,
Yeah, for sure. A lot of good stuff in there. I loved, how you said you got to get specific with it and you got to have something that's time bound. And I think, but at the same time, so two things that you did, you got specific, you made it time bound, you made a game plan where you knew exactly kind of on a weekly basis, this is about how much I should be losing. And on a daily basis, this is how much I should be eating. So you got very, very specific with it,
mhm,
but your vision got bigger,
yeah.
your vision at the same time. So we got very specific with your actions, but your vision got bigger. And I think that is a huge thing, that you went deeper than just, I just want to look better and feel better. It was like, no, like this matters for my kids, for my family, for my legacy, to be the man that I know that I want to be.
Yeah.
You latched onto that, which just expanded your view. It was like, okay, let's go. This matters to me now.
Mhm.
And then you broke it down into very specific, actionable steps. And I think a lot of times we get stuck in the middle of those two things where the vision isn't big enough, the vision is small, and then the results are too vague and they're too just, I want to look better. It's like that is not going to drive you and not going to be specific enough to actually get really good results.
Yeah, it's such an immeasurable goal, and it's so interesting. I think, yeah, totally what you said. Like, if your vision is too small or just not specific enough, it's not sustainable. And when your
Yeah.
goals are so just ethereal, you'll never hit
Yeah.
them. And so even if
Yeah.
you're making great progress, you won't appreciate it or maybe even recognize it because you didn't set out at the beginning, hey, this is actually the goal that I want to hit, or this is the lifestyle I
Yeah.
want to have, or this is the person that I want to be. And so you're always just aiming at nothing and never arriving to any sense of like fulfillment.
Yeah. Wow. That isn't that true? That's so true. I would love to kind of dig into a little bit of the just the habits, I guess, and the kind of the consistency that you've put in place over the last year. So, what what has your week looked like? So you can talk fitness and you can talk eating,
Yeah.
um, but I do think what you said was really powerful because a lot of people, and myself included, at a lot of times think that this has to be miserable and you have to eat only these foods and you have to work out for 4 hours a day,
Yeah.
and it's like that doesn't sound fun. So just tell me kind of what your lifestyle is looking like right now.
Yeah, I mean, so right now, I guess before that, I'll start kind of at the beginning of this year.
Hmm.
I started small. I was doing, working out maybe 3 to 4 days a week, starting small and then
Yeah.
figuring out what is working for me, what is not.
Yes.
I just launched my own business as well. So some of it is just trying to get into a better rhythm of like, okay, I just don't have the time to be gone doing these long workouts,
Hmm.
6 days a week. Um, so I've condensed it to where, am I still hitting every major muscle group every week? And that's what I care about. And it's, we can talk about the eating side of things, but what's interesting for me, and I don't think I really realized it until, we started having this conversation, is
Yeah.
as a as a retired fat kid, um, even in my eating, like in the training side of things, I weigh myself maybe once a month, and I used to do it every morning to be like, am I still
Yeah.
losing weight? Am I still losing weight? And once you start working out, you don't lose weight as quickly because you're losing fat but gaining muscle, and so it feels like you're not making progress. And so, as
Hmm.
somebody who's always struggled with weight loss, my mentality has shifted to where I'm focusing more on my strength and training program of, am I getting stronger, not am I getting smaller.
Yes. Yep. That's
And
great.
that is a shift that if you'd have told me a year ago, like, oh, in 11 months you're going to care more about getting stronger than you will about losing weight, I'm like, I don't think so. And now I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's my main focus. I'm down to like a healthy weight of where, somebody of my height should be. But if there's, a week or two goes by and I'm like, oh, I actually haven't weighed myself, and I'm not that worried about it because I'm
Hmm.
I'm still getting stronger, and I know, like, I'm tracking most every meal, and eating out a lot less, and some of that is those are harder to track. I don't know how much butter or oil somebody's
Right.
putting in the food that they're cooking, and it doesn't mean my wife and I never, like, go out to dinner. We still do that. Like, I still get to have a a real life.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, so I started with, in the counting calories. I did it pretty extreme for the first little bit, um, and now I've gotten to where, you get used to eating that for 3 or 4 months. Once you get the like, okay, now I can do 18 or 1900 calories a day and not lose weight, is like, oh, I just added a whole nother meal to my day.
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
somebody who doesn't normally eat breakfast, I'm like, I get really full twice a day, and it's awesome. I'm not going over my calories. I would say most days I have leftover calories, which is great.
Hmm.
But I've been able to maintain between 188 and 193 since June, and
Yeah.
and I've
That's
I've
awesome.
never maintained a single weight for this long. Um,
Hmm.
and I never thought that I would have the like, okay, I think in January we're going to do a hard cut, and then I'm like, oh, in the spring I want to intentionally do like a bulk to get stronger. I You couldn't have. ever convinced me like, "Hey, one day you're gonna try and
Yeah.
gain weight intentionally so you can get stronger." And I'm like, no, the last thing I ever want to do is actively gain weight." And now it's like, well, no, I want to get stronger. And I
Mhm.
can't do that eating, such few calories a day. And that wasn't a
For
reality for
sure.
me a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, and you said so many good things in there, and I think one thing that's so cool about your story is you did go very hard right out of the gate because you had that goal. And so sometimes that's what's required is to be a little more disciplined, a little more intense. But now you really have settled into a good, just sustainable, healthy lifestyle, which is cool because it doesn't feel like that constant, oh my gosh, I got 5 months on, then I
Yeah.
crash, and then I got 5 months. It's like, no, you worked really hard. You put together an intentional plan where you got very specific with things. You built habits, you built disciplines, and you completely changed your identity and your mindset around this stuff to where now you love it and enjoy it and it's fun to you. And you found a rhythm that works for you,
Yeah.
which is huge. And ultimately in this area, consistency is the key,
Yep.
and you found what works. And so now that's the really cool and freeing part of it is your life isn't insanely restrictive at this point. You aren't spending hours and hours and hours in the gym every single day. You're able to spend time on the things that are most important to you because we both know this is just an area of life. This isn't the main area. Obviously it affects other areas, but your main priority is your family and your
Yeah,
wife,
totally.
and those are more important. And so you've found a rhythm where this area is healthy, but it's not dominating your life,
Yeah.
which is really really cool. So if you're listening to this, it may take 6 months of intense, like, let's get after this. If it could be debt, it could be like, let's take 6 months to knock down debt. It could be getting a business off the ground. We got to go 6 months crazy hard to do this. Could be losing weight. And you may have to have that intense focus on it, but then you can kind of fall into these rhythms like Marcus is now, where it's actually not like it's a good, sustainable, healthy
Yeah.
lifestyle. And so now he gets to just keep these habits in place for life and be in a good place where he's enjoying it. And so I think that is super inspiring and cool that you've found that balance. Um, and just to see the way that you go about it and how you're inspiring other people and helping other guys who are in the same situation as you were is so cool. So, I love, like, what if somebody was in your situation, we're talking the last 5, 10 years, or even just who you were a year or two ago, what advice would you give to them now? Even if it's not related to health or fitness, but just feeling stuck, feeling a victim mentality, feeling like they can't break through. What advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say, gosh, start small.
Hmm.
Um, Set realistic goals. And what helped me in setting a realistic goal is like have a coach, have somebody who's walking alongside it with you that can say, "Hey, that's great that this is your goal. You want to lose 100 pounds in 5 months, or you want to get out of $85,000 of debt in 6 weeks." Have somebody that's going to tell you that's not realistic. It's a good goal to have, but what is your like immediate goal? What is your long term goal? Like, let's set an actual vision for
Hmm.
you so you don't just get burnt out. Because chances are,
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, I really want to lose weight, as somebody who's done it, it's not that hard. You just lack discipline. And if you could have done
Yeah.
it, you would have done it by now. And so there's a lack of discipline that I think only having an outside party is like, I think that's the only way that you're capable of doing it. Like I had everything I needed. Like you're not
Hmm.
showing up to the gym and holding my hand during workouts or slapping cake out of my mouth. But you gave
Yeah.
me the tools to put in place to help me create the disciplines I needed. So I would say start small,
Right.
have a coach, and set realistic goals.
That's so good. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time and just yeah, your wisdom and your passion, and just for sharing that with us. We'd love to, as a community and the intentional man, just pour back into you. Can you just give us a brief overview of what's going on in your life and the ways that we can support you or help you?
Oh geez. Yeah, I've recently started a consulting firm, so helping, a lot of
Yes.
businesses do a lot of great work and don't necessarily know how to express the actual value of the work that they do. So I just kind of help people, put the right words together, whether it's for your marketing, for your sales, getting your website in a way that is like not losing you sales and is actually converting people. So really helping people set and execute strategic goals. And that's, you can
Yes,
find
that's great.
any and all information about that at copilotconsultingservices.com. Yeah.
Copilotconsultingservices.com. Love it. And he is a wizard at this stuff.
Thank you.
So go and schedule a free call with
Yep.
him. If that's something that you're looking for, help with marketing, website stuff, digital marketing, anything in that realm, social media management, he's your guy. And thanks for being on,
Thanks so
Marcus.
much for having me.
And appreciate you. And we'll see all of you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Intentional Man podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review. If you are someone who is looking to take your life to the next level, accelerate your success, and live more intentionally, I would love to help. Shoot me a text at 970-430-6085, and we can schedule a time to meet to discuss your vision and your goals. Again, that is 970-430-6085. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, build a life that matters by living intentionally.